Welcome to Unlikely Gamer. In this video, I'm going to review some basic tactics for your Death Guard kill team. I will be using a roster composed of both Plague Marines and Poxwalkers. For an overview of this roster, please watch my other video, How to Build a Death Guard Kill Team, linked below. This particular Death Guard kill team is composed of 11 operatives. One Plague Marine champion armed with a plasma pistol and a power fist, one Plague Marine heavy gunner armed with a plague spewer and a plague knife, and one Plague Marine icon bearer armed with a bolt gun and a plague knife. And last, but certainly not least, is 8 Poxwalkers armed with, well, a variety of scavenged, nasty, rusty melee weapons. Now, we're ready to review the tactics to win with this Death Guard kill team. Tactic number 1, Poxwalker Harassment. No, you have not accidentally clicked on some bizarre DEI lecture from the Administratum's Human Resources Department. This is about using your Poxwalkers to distract your opponent and disrupt their plans. Now remember, kill team is not just about eliminating all of the enemy operatives on the kill zone, as much fun as that could be. Just ask my novitiates. While Poxwalkers are not much help when it comes to securing mission objectives due to their limited use of action points, they can be effective at keeping your opponent from objectives or just generally distracting them from their game plan. Poxwalkers effectively are good for locking up your opponent operatives because of their numbers, but also that durability. Remember, due to the Death Guard's disgustingly resilient, that allows them a 1 in 3 chance that they're going to ignore any wound that's been assigned to them. And since players rarely see Poxwalkers in a game, I find that most people really overreact to them. They see 8 models with large melee weapons and judge them far bigger threat than they actually are. So this is going to have them shift all of their firepower and movement to actually do something about them, which is the exact reaction you want. At the end of the day, Poxwalkers are fodder. They are meant to distract, annoy, and spread contagion around for Papa Nurgle. Regarding their durability, with this guild team, it's really going to be all about rolls. You're going to end up with games where you inevitably are rolling really well and keeping your Poxwalkers alive, which is just going to create panic for your opponent. So, I also mentioned that the Poxwalkers can spread contagion, which brings me to tactic number 2, Contagion and Filth Censor. Contagion is a strategic ploy that the Death Guard kill team should use often. Contagion represents the pestilence, effectively, that the Death Guard spread across the world. Now, Contagion is active during a whole turning point, and during that turning point, any enemy operative within 2 inches is treated as injured. Now, if you have a Plague Marine equipped with a Filth Censor, then you're going to extend the range of Contagion for that model up to 4 inches. So for those players that are used to the longer distances of 40k games, remember that a kill team kill zone is a really tight table at only 30 by 22 inches. So a 9-inch circle range is actually a significant portion of the kill zone. The Contagion strategic ploy is going to be used in 2 primary cases. First is the early game, where there's still a lot of distance between opposing teams. Contagion is going to really limit your opponent's choices. They're going to think twice about moving closer to you, knowing that they risk becoming injured, and this hesitation is going to cause them to be overly conservative, and that is going to act to your advantage. The second is mid to late game, when both teams are already close to each other and either within range or within range after a dash or a charge. So using Contagion is going to end up giving injured status to a bunch of your enemies, and if you time it well, it's going to make your kill zone positioning much better. Tactic 3 is Death by Plasma. This isn't unique to Death Guard, and likely is pretty obvious to veteran players, but your Death Guard kill team's leader should absolutely have a plasma pistol. Protect that champion and look for opportunities to one-shot across the board, possibly to your opponent's leader as well. And you always go supercharged. Risk the hot roll. Remember, you have high wounds, you're disgustingly resilient, you can and should defeat and go through with that overheated plasma pistol. Tactic number 4 is Hateful Assault. Hateful Assault is a Death Guard strategic ploy that allows every Plague Marine operative to fight twice in a turning point as long as they do not shoot. So this is typically a mid to late game strategic ploy when you're contesting objectives. or you're maybe already locked in melee and need to take out some key threats. For your champion, this means 2 fights, 5 attacks each, hitting on 3s with that power fist. It also has the brutal keyword, which means parrying is extremely difficult. If you time this well, your champion could take out 2 operatives in one turning point. So even with your supporting shooty Plague Marines armed only with their little plague knives, Hateful Assault turns them into a pretty viable melee. So this means they're going to have their standard plague knife issue is going to do 6 attacks, averaging over 12 wounds that your enemy will need to parry or save, which is enough to kill most operatives, and you'll probably stay alive with your disgustingly resilient. Tactic 5 is extending melee. This is a tactic that can be used certainly by any kill team, but it works really well to get a lot of use out of your Poxwalkers. It's often not done, but you do have the option of not fighting when you are engaged with an enemy operative, even if you have unused action points. This means that your Poxwalker, with only 2 wounds remaining, can engage an enemy, and particularly one that's already activated, and then choose to not fight. This does 2 things. First, it preserves your Poxwalker until the next turning point, keeping the enemy operative locked in melee, and at the same time keeping your Poxwalker untargetable by any ranged attacks. And second, it forces your opponent to spend an action to fight your Poxwalker on the next turn. Bonus, if you already have Contagion activated, that means that that enemy operative will also do so at 1 less weapon skill. I also find that your opponent is going to choose to do this melee action earlier because it's those distracting Poxwalkers. What is he up to? Why is this zombie around me? So assuming that your Poxwalker even dies, that then means that your enemy operative, if they're around an objective point, is exposed for range attacks later in the turning point. And Tactic 6 is Ring the Bell. This is my Plague Marine champion. So this one is pretty situational and very specific to this particular model and style, but I think it's worth a mention. Honestly, I do this because I love the lore, the modeling aspect, it looks so good. So what I'm referring to is this Plague Bell. I added this to my Plague Marine champion. First, it does look cool, I love it, but that doesn't make an effective tactic. So it represents the Plague Bell equipment that's available to the Death Guard. It costs 3 equipment points, which yes, is expensive, which is the same as the Filth Censor, but I feel like I'm playing it for how it looks, but it also does have some pretty good functionality. When your champion rings the Plague Bell, all friendly Plague Marines within 6 inches of the Plague Bell get an additional 2 inches of movement. And when you need to get to an objective quickly, it makes sense to move your Plague Marines as a group to get there quickly as you can, and the Plague Bell is going to be as effective because your slow-ass team needs a boost. It can also be really effective when trying to position your Plague Marine Heavy Gunner to get his bloated little bum up into a position where he can use the Plague Spewer early and do crowd control around key objectives. Hopefully this guide on how to play your Death Guard kill team was interesting and inspiring. I would love to hear your favorite Death Guard tactics, and I would especially love to hear from any players who are using Poxwalkers in their roster. If you're interested in learning more about Kill Team, please like and subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell for notifications, and may your dice always roll crits.